The studio lights dimmed, the cameras locked in, and the hushed tension in the room could almost be touched. When Todd Lyons, the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, walked onto the set of My View, the audience was already restless. Some faces were sympathetic, others hostile. It was no secret that ICE, and Todd himself, had become a lightning rod in America's bitter cultural storm. But nobody expected what Todd was about to reveal. He didn't start with statistics. He didn't begin with policy or politics. Instead, his voice trembled with a rawness that broke through the armor of his title. Every morning, he said, staring at the host across the table, my agents kiss their families goodbye, knowing they may not come home. And not just because of the job itself, but because of the people waiting outside their homes with cameras, shouting their names, screaming threats at their children, leaking addresses online. That's the part nobody talks about. That's the war behind the headlines. The audience went still. For a moment, the cameras captured a man who wasn't just an official defending his agency. He was a father, a husband, and a leader whose people were being hunted in the shadows of a country at war with itself. Todd leaned forward, his hand trembling as he lifted a worn photograph from his jacket pocket. It showed a smiling young agent, just 33 years old, holding his toddler in his arms. He got doxxed last summer, Todd whispered. His home address blasted across Twitter. Within hours, strangers were circling his block. They sent letters filled with threats. They spray-painted, "Baby Killer," across his car. His wife couldn't take it anymore. She packed up the baby and left. He's still in that empty house today, sitting by the window every night with a shotgun. He told me he doesn't sleep, he just waits. Gasps erupted across the studio. The host shifted uncomfortably, clearly unprepared for the level of raw detail Todd was unleashing. Are you saying, she asked carefully, that ICE agents face the same kind of terror that they're accused of causing? Todd's eyes flashed. I'm not comparing. I'm stating fact. You want to talk about trauma? Look at my people. Look at their kids who can't go to school without bodyguards. Look at the wives and husbands who leave grocery stores only to be followed to their cars by masked strangers filming them. Look at the mothers who have to explain to their children why someone mailed them a doll soaked in fake blood. The studio air was electric now. A man in the front row shouted, "Good. They deserve it." Security quickly pulled him back, but the eruption only underscored Todd's point. This is what I mean, Todd said bitterly. This division, this hatred, it's devouring us. And the people caught in the middle are the ones sworn to enforce the laws written by others. He paused, his gaze dropping to the table. Then his voice lowered to a whisper that carried more weight than any shouted argument. Last month, one of my senior office's kids was followed home from baseball practice. 11 years old, a stranger leaned down, told him, "Your daddy's a monster." Monsters get what's coming. That boy hasn't spoken a word since. He's in therapy now, but what do I say to his father? What do I tell him when he looks at me, his hands shaking, and asks, "Is this job worth my son's silence?" You could hear the tears in his voice. The cameras zoomed in. Viewers at home saw not a bureaucrat, but a broken man balancing the unbearable weight of lives in his hands. The host, visibly rattled, finally asked, "Why are you telling us this now, Director Lyons?" Todd's reply was immediate, urgent. Because people need to know. Because the truth has been twisted into headlines, soundbites, caricatures. My people are not faceless villains. They are human beings. They are veterans, mothers, fathers, neighbors. And they are being hunted. Not in some foreign battlefield, but here, in their own neighborhoods. For the next hour, Todd painted a picture so vivid, so visceral, it felt like the set itself had dissolved into the world he described. He told of an agent whose front door was set on fire while his family slept upstairs. Of a young recruit who quit after someone mailed a bullet with her name scratched into the casing. Of a widow who buried her husband, an ICE officer killed in an ambush, only to find protesters spitting on the fresh dirt of his grave. And through it all, Todd's voice never rose in anger. It broke, it wavered, it carried pain, but never rage. The power of his words came not from defending his agency with fire, but from showing the human toll of hatred with quiet devastation. Halfway through, a silence fell across the studio audience. The hecklers were gone. Even those who came in hostile now sat with wide, stunned eyes. At one point, Todd reached into his jacket again and pulled out a small notebook. Its pages were tattered, filled with scribbled notes. "These are messages my agents have received," he explained. "I carry them so no one can call me a liar. He read one aloud. "We know where you live. We're coming for your kids first. Sleep well, pig." The studio froze. The host paled. Todd flipped another page. "Hope you like coffins. Because you'll need two. One for your wife, one for your baby." The audience murmured in horror. Todd closed the notebook with trembling hands. "This is not a political issue. This is not left versus right. This is human lives versus a mob with no conscience. I need America to look me in the eyes and tell me, do we really want to live in a country where a man risks his child's life just for enforcing the law?" The host tried to respond, but her voice cracked. For the first time in years on her show, she had no comeback. No clever line, no rehearsed retort. By the end, Todd stood, his eyes glassy but his spine straight. "I don't know how long I'll hold this job," he said. "But I do know this. I will not abandon the men and women who wear this badge. They deserve protection, they deserve dignity, and they deserve to live without wondering if tonight is the night someone kicks in their door." The camera lingered on him, the silence deafening. And then, as if the universe itself couldn't contain the weight of his words, the audience erupted, not in boos, not in cheers, but in something rarer. Applause. Slow, hesitant at first, then swelling like a wave that refused to be stopped. For one brief, fragile moment, it seemed as though the humanity Todd Lyons had exposed had pierced through the walls of politics, outrage, and division. But outside the studio, the protests were waiting. Signs waved, chants echoed, and as Todd's car pulled out of the underground garage, a masked figure filmed his license plate. Because for all the emotion of the show, for all the applause inside, the war outside had not ended. It was only just beginning.